Hello travelers and strangers from wherever you may come from around the world. Welcome to Ulga's Tavern. Today I will be reviewing the Black Library book, The End of Enlightenment. It is a lumineth realm lord story that is going to be mainly focused around our main character named Igethan. He is part of the Alarith temple and he is the stone mage. It is the guy that you see in the cover. And first things first that I have to say about this book, it's a good book. There has been better, but it's a good book. You have to be patient with it. The way it starts, it's in a very epic way. It kind of gives you this impression that it's going to stay that way, but sadly it kind of slows down after the first chapter, and it doesn't pick up after maybe the 12th. But the things that are in between the book, in between those chapters, are pretty interesting if you're interested in the lore side, in the way the thinking and mentality of both sides are. For example, we are introduced to also one of the ossiarch bonereapers, Siege Cavalos, and his name is Akridos. He is the other, I guess we will say, we can call it the other side of the coin of Igethan, because their story kind of mirrors in a way. So the book starts in a very epic way. It's a beginning battle that you can kind of compare to the way some epic battles that you have seen on TV. For example, the perfect example I can give to you as to how crazy in your mind it can seem is picturing that scene in Game of Thrones when Jon Snow is going to get all the wildlings, and then you get White Walkers coming in from the cliff and they just begin attacking. It's basically as epic as that. Here you can picture the lumineth realm lords with all their confidence just marching into Shaiish and thinking that they're gonna take it over and they're gonna win the war, because it's a very easy thing to do. It is what basically Teclis has been doing the whole time. He's just being rash and attacking Shaiish, and that mentality has spread out to the entire lumineth society. And so when the book starts, it puts you into the mind of Igethan's sister, and she is just oozing with confidence. It's just overly confident, for even as I was reading about it, it's just too much confidence. But it does make you picture how you use them in the tabletop as well, because in the tabletop you get some of the rules that you get some of the synergy if you have, for example, the wardens together in a tight compact formation. And here it's basically the same thing. All the lumineth realm lords, all the wardens basically move in a very cohesive formation, and it's like muscle memory as to what they're doing. If one moves, the entire formation moves with it. And if you're picturing, like, if it was a camera, if you look your left to your right, you would just see just a straight line of just the wardens, the spears coming down all at the same time, and everything is just like clockwork. And also the book greatly describes their magic, since they have Aether core. It just imbued with magic, their weapons, and you can see the blue shining out of it, that magnificent blue that gives that Haiish taste to it, and saying that they're the light. That's why they're called the lumineth, and just makes them look more impressive than they already are. And it kind of does give you some ideas as some of the painting schemes you want to do. For example, if you want to do like your weapon shining, it gives you that great idea that you can just give it magic, and you can just say that it's imbued with the Aether core and it's just shining with that. So in your mind's eye you can just picture that entire formation just forming of lumineth realm lords moving one cohesive battle, one cohesive unit, just hearing those stomping on the floor, the marches, and the high wardens don't even have to give orders for the next unit to move it. Everything is just, like I said, just clockwork. And then you also have the Dawn Riders, who are also elite force, that here they shows you at exactly how elite they are, and they're also as splendid as the lumineth realm lords. So as they're moving forward with all their confidence and feeling that they could just take over Shaiish in just one day, then they meet their opposite, which is the ossiarch bonereapers. And who is leading the ossiarch bonereapers? None other than Akridos. And the book does very well at introducing Akridos by making him be a very tactical leader, but at the same time he is very flawed. He's also very, very confident as to what he does, and he feels that he's better than everyone. And the fact also that somehow he can still remember his past life, that he used to be a king and he used to have his own empire, gives him this ambition that you don't get to see in other characters. So as the battle goes on, you know, you can just picture that battle in your head, you know, swords clashing, shields clashing. We also get to picture some of the Dawn Riders as they charge and retreat, and just showing how deadly they are. You can just picture bones flying everywhere from the constructs that are the ossiarch bonereapers. And it is, like I said, it's when you picture that in your head, it sounds epic. And at the first glance, it seems like the lumineth ramlords were right, that their overconfidence was just gonna win the battle. But this is where the tactical prowess of Ossiarch comes in, and he sees that actually the thing that is being the most deadly to his forces are the Dawn Riders themselves. So what he does, he gets his Death Riders and tries to get them, and he actually manages to stop them with his Dead Riders. So now they're in a deadlock between, you know, horse rider and horse rider, horses and horses, while Ossiarch himself begins to attack the right flank. And that is when the High Warden, Agathan's sister, realizes that the right flank is falling. So they start to move to the right and try to protect that flank, but also they notice that their center is beginning to diminish as well. And so that is when Ossiarch begins to encircle them, and now you can feel the dread happening in all the wardens as they see their comrades falling, neck left and right. And the lumineth ramlords, being the warriors that they are, they would still not give up. And as one warrior would fall, the next one would take its place, and so on and so on. And that is when Agathan's sister, she gets knocked down and she begins bleeding, but she still feels like she can have some sort of semblance of consciousness to herself, and she tells everybody to retreat. And as they're trying to retreat, they realize that it's going to be futile, and so that is when Ossiarch himself gives the last strike and pierces her, and she dies. And as she's dying, Agathan, being connected to her spirit, since here we do learn that the lumineth ramlords, when they're siblings, they are connected somehow, he can feel the fact that his sister is dead. So after she dies, we get to meet another character that is kind of important to the story, and that is Cathanos, the Mortisan Soul Mason. Now he is sort of the opposite of Ossiarch, that he's actually a staunch follower of Nagash, and whatever Nagash says is the word basically of their god, so he follows it to the teeth. And he actually does a tactical move that proves to be a hinder later on in the story, but at the moment it seemed like a good idea. He gives Agathan's sister's soul to Ossiarch's soul stone, but he fails to realize that the fact that there is this connection between the sister and Agathan, that she still has a semblance of control, and so somehow the fact that she has this semblance of consciousness still left in her soul, she begins to slowly poison Ossiarch. And Ossiarch does feel a slight, I guess, uncomfort as to the fact that she has this light inside of his death construct that he is, this death magic, that somehow there is some light in there, and he does feel some discomfort. So like I said, this epic battle kind of gives you the impression that that is how the book is going to stay, but sadly it does not. It still doesn't mean it's a bad story, it just means that it's a slow burn. It is a very slow burn, and once we get introduced to Agathan, it becomes more about his story, about his internal struggle, because Agathan himself, he is a veteran warrior of the Reunification Wars. Now, if you're not knowledgeable about the lore, the Reunification War is basically what happened after the Shadespire in Lumineth Ramlord Society. They call the Okari Dara. It is basically just a civil war when the Lumineth Ramlords began to get greedy, and they began to say that their temple was the best temple, and they began to having an internal war. The civil war began, and so that is also when Slaanesh began to kind of take over again, and Teclis began to fear that they were repeating the same steps that they had done in the old world. But when Teclis got the knowledge of the elemental magics, he began to unify his people, and that is when the reunification wars happened. And Igethen is a veteran of this war, but he has this internal struggle because he knows what war is like. He knows what killing your own kin is like, and he regrets sending elves to their death, and he does not want to join war again. He does not want to have war again. And in his own way, he does criticize Teclis' way of thinking, that they're being too rash in their decisions. They're just attacking, and they're not thinking about the consequences that come after. And this kind of recalls to the book Broken Realms Teclis, when Alarith does tell Teclis that he's being too rash and he's not thinking about what happens next after he defeats Nagash. That there's going to be a resurgence of life. We still don't know what that means. It's very cryptic, that little message, but it's basically Agathen's also way of thinking that everyone in lumineth Realm Lord society is being too aggressive and too rash, and are not thinking about what happens next. So being this veteran, he does have this internal struggle of whether to join Teclis' ambitious war to stop Nagash or stay behind. But then when he feels the death of his sister, his internal struggle becomes even bigger, because he does feel like she's still inside the soul stone of Akraidos, so he wants to free her. Now the book does a sort of a good job in pushing his story forward when they mention that he has a dream, and in this dream he's visited by Teclis himself, the god mage, and just basically does not give him an option as to joining the war, because Igethen, being also a follower of Teclis, he cannot say no to his god mage. He basically says, and I quote, "If this is your wishes, I will do so." And then Teclis says, "That is what I'm ordering to you. I want you to lead my army." So when he wakes up, he's imbued with the light of Teclis, and every other lumineth Realm Lord kind of sees this as a sign that he has been visited by Teclis himself. So whatever he says to do is actually as if it was the voice of Teclis himself. But as all of this is happening, Igethen himself still does not want to do this battle, because he feels that if he goes back into being to his old warrior self, he's going to find that old passion that he had for killing his kin, and that is what he does not want to have. He does not want to have this, I guess, joy of being a warrior, of killing again, because as I said, he after reminiscing of everything he did, he kind of regrets everything that he did. And ever since after the reunification wars, he just went down into the archives and he just began to read the entire old stories of old times, of the Age of Myth, the Age of Chaos, and began to learn that he feels like the lumineth Realm Lords are repeating their old habits, and they need to be more, enlightened, and they shouldn't be just being rash and joining into battles. So between chapter 2 and 12 is just basically this inner struggle that he has to have, I guess, just to push the story forward. And it's interesting in a way when you get to see that side. As he's having this internal struggle, Akraidos is having the same thing, but in the opposite way. As we have learned before, Nagash has given the ossiarch bonereapers a semblance of free will, and I feel like this book kind of gives you the idea that maybe that wasn't such a good idea, because Akraidos, having the soul of an ancient king of a land, he feels like he's entitled to have a new land, and he feels that once the fight is over, he is entitled to rule over Haish, whether Nagash wants it or not. That is what he wants, and he even says it himself. Even if he has to take it himself, he will do it. So that is very interesting, because we've seen it before, but only with the Mortogs, never really with one of the soldiers themselves. So I kind of feel like that was a bad idea for Nagash to do, because he does task Akraidos with the mission to kill the Light of Altharion, and basically his entire mission is to go to Haish and look for the Light of Altharion and just kill them, because he is a threat to Nagash. But as he's going after the Light of Altharion, he has this inner light, which is Agathen's sister, which is beginning to poison him, and I guess rekindle that old soul of that old king. And so he feels more entitled, and he feels like he has more free will to do whatever he wants. even though Kathanos is constantly telling him that what he's doing is going against the words of Nagash, and he brings this little lawyer lingo of saying every decision that he makes and the fact that he wants his own kingdom and his own lands is not his will, it's actually coming from Nagash himself. So it's just kind of his lawyer lingo to kind of cover his tracks, cover his ass. So he's having this internal struggle, as in the opposite way of Agethan. He's having more of a revival of his old soul, to the point that he starts to hate on Kathanos, because Kathanos is constantly on his back saying that he needs to follow the rules of Nagash, he needs to follow and look for the light of Altharion and not focus on this petty fights between him and Agethan. Because once he finds out that Agethan is the sister of the soul that he has inside, he feels compelled that he has to look for him. And I'm not sure if that is the soul of Agethan's sister pushing that towards him, or is that just more of his personal will, that maybe in a sick way he wants to have also Agethan's soul so they can join together, and then afterwards they can rule together. So as the story is going, we get to see some interesting stuff happening around. We get to learn a little bit more about the lore, because for example, in the middle of the book we get to meet also a Cathalar, because at some point when they're building their war parties and they meet in the war room, we get to meet three important characters from the lumineth side. So we get to meet Belfinin, the leader of the Dawn Riders, Alessis, the Stone Guard, and the Cathalar. So for Belfinin, he's a very good character. They wrote him pretty well. We get to meet him. He comes in with his Dawn Riders, and he's an old elf, and he makes a very quick impression on everyone, because he's very witted and he always likes to drink, and he's always telling poets, because here we learn that all of the lumineth focus on an art, and that is one critique that he has for the Lumineth Rambler Society that we also get to learn about, is the fact that he feels like the Lumineth Ramblers have become soft, that they have lost their will to fight, because it turns out that in Lumineth Rambler Society it is kind of like real world countries like Israel and Korea, that the fact that you have to join the military. So Lumineth Rambler Society, it is the same thing. All the Lumineth are required to join the military and have military experience. They even are required to keep their equipment always in their homes in case they have to fight. But to Belfinin, he sees that now everyone is becoming very complacent and they're just focusing more on arts and becoming more aristocratic than actually being the warrior society that they have been before. And in a way he's kind of right, because when finally Acridos reaches Haish, they do take over a town very easily, and most of the Lumineth become just refugees. They begin to flee, and here we do see that yes, he's right, the Lumineth became soft. If they were always battle ready and battle hardened, they could have fought back, because we do learn that the Lumineth are a very, very elite units. The Wardens, just a few hundred of them, could decimate 1,000 Mortis Guard, and it's pretty impressive the way they show off that side, and it's pretty amazing how they show off that side that the Lumineth are able to just take down, just by the lots, the Mortec Guard, and it's pretty amazing how they actually show that off. It's just battle after battle. They show off that, as I said, they're very cohesive in the way they are. They get their synergies from being right next to one another. They're able to hold their ground, and the Dawn Riders are just able to charge and retreat, and they just become deadly weapons. And usually they don't give up. So you can see why in the tabletop they are a very elite army, as well as the ossiarch bonereapers, at the fact that since they are just bone constructs, they don't feel any pain, so they just launch themselves at the enemy, and they just don't give a damn about how that happens. They will launch themselves and they will just keep on swinging until they kill as many people as they have. So basically sometimes they just win by overwhelming the enemy and the fact that they don't feel anything. And the other character that we do get to meet is Alethys, the Stone Guard. Now Alethys, the Stone Guard, is quite the opposite of Belfinin, and she's more serious, she's more stoic. She's a very warrior-esque, but very calm. Like she's, as her name says, she's Stone Guard. She's very stone-faced. She doesn't show a lot of emotions, but she does care a lot about the units and her fellow wardens and even the Dawn Riders, even though she criticizes Belfinin way too much. And her story is more to be just a supporting character for Igethin and more the emotional side. And thanks to her, we also get to see how deadly the Stone Guard can be, at the fact that one or two of them can actually take down an Immortus Guard. In the book they take down 2 or 3 easily, and it's pretty epic. That's why you can have minimal units in the tabletop and they will actually just do a lot of damage. Now the last important character that we get to meet is the Cathalar. Now the way we get to meet the Cathalar is a little bit creepy because, as we all know, they're the mages that take all the fear away and all the inner struggles from the lumineth when they're going to battle. Well, here we get to have a little picturesque of what she actually is like when Igethin goes and visits her. It's kind of creepy because when he gets there, it's just mist surrounded and you cannot see her, and she will only show her face and herself when she wants you. And the way she communicates with you is just through whispers, and that is kind of creepy, just hearing a whisper in the mist. And as Igethin was getting closer and closer to her, his entire fears would come out, and he even would hallucinate and see an evil version of himself, and he would just start to feel fear and start crying. But that is what the Cathalars do to the enemies. And for the lumineth, what she does is she gets all that fear, she accumulates it into herself, and then the little cup that they have with mist coming out in the models, that's basically they're burning all that fear and all those bad things coming out of the lumineth and just coming as smoke, and they're able to control this. And basically she tells Igethin that she will not help them in this battle that happens in chapter 12, but she will help when she's needed. And this basically demoralizes a little bit Igethin, because he was hoping to have her and just give him a little boost into giving him a reason to fight. But since that happened, he doesn't feel like he doesn't have the will to fight. But since they're also next to Ulsaradon, the mountain, he feels this importance to protect the mountain. So he somehow finds this will to fight, and when he comes back to the camp, he tells everybody that they should get ready for war. Now the ossiarch bonereapers keep on marching, and then on chapter 12 we do get a battle, and it's at the style of 300, the lesser army fighting against the bigger, badder army with more numbers, and the lumineth barely get to win. Well, they don't even win, they actually lose, but they barely get to escape. But as they were retreating, Igethin summons some of his magic, because he's a stone mage, and he blocks the way, and the ossiarch bonereapers cannot pass. And this is when Akraidos' entire ego just breaks, and he actually he kills Cathanos because he just couldn't stand him anymore, hearing the fact that Nagash doesn't want that, and this is when he flips and he just becomes selfish and he wants to do what he wants to do. And from this we also get to see some of the other characters, kind of a little bit minor characters from the ossiarch bonereaper side. We have the bone shapers that make all the bone constructs. We do get to see their magic, and you kind of do get to picture in your mind's eye that they create this huge tornado of just bones. They actually are able to manage even already made Mortec guards. They're able to deconstruct them and create this large tornado of just bones, and they begin to just hit the mountain so they can just unblock it and move forward. And once they're able to escape on this, they start marching towards the mountain, because they feel that, according to Akraidos, that if they destroy the mountain, if they destroy Ulsaradon, then the Light of Altharion is gonna be forced to show his face, and they'll fight, and he'll be able to kill the Light of Altharion and make Nagash happy. But that's just an excuse to go and kill Igethin, because that is his main goal, and if he gets the Golem Nagash, why not? And that way Nagash can give him Haish to rule, because he feels that he deserves to have Haish to rule. And on the last battle, it is also equally as epic as the first one. It ends as good as it started, and here we get to see the spirit of Usaradon come out, and apparently the spirit of Usaradon hasn't been seen in centuries, so that makes it important for them to have fought alongside Usaradon. And we get to see that Usaradon is just the tipping point for the Lumineth. They were losing pretty bad, and if it wasn't for Usaradon, they wouldn't have won. Here is where we have everybody else join in as well. We also have the Cathalar. She joined the battle, and she gave that boost to the Lumineth Round Lord, and they managed to pull off that win. The book just ends with Igethin finally having enough of it, that he does not want to fight anymore. He does not want to be like the rest of the Lumineth, and that is the way it ends. It ends with catching up with the second chapter of Broken Realms, when Archon the Black is defeated by the Light of Ulthuan. So it kind of does take place in the same timeline, and so the book ends with Igethin going away with the Cathalar, because he needs to go on this, I guess, soul searching trip. So yeah, it ends this way, and like I said, it started off great. The middle part, it's a slow burn. It's interesting if you want to focus on like the internal struggles of the both characters of Akraidos and Igethin, and also it's good if you want to learn more about the inner workings of the Lumineth society. You get to learn certain things that you probably wouldn't have learned anywhere else, and that is some of the positives. You also get to see how Akraidos, you get to see how the bonereapers can actually have a will enough to rebel against Nagash, and if Nagash wasn't defeated in Broken Realms, maybe that could have happened, who knows. And now that Nagash is defeated, maybe another bonereaper is going to try to take over, another Siege Kavalos, who knows. And it ends pretty well. It ends with another battle, but overall it's a good book. I would recommend it if you were interested in the lore of the Lumineth and like to learn a little bit more. There's a few things here and there that I didn't talk about because they're kind of interesting, but I want for you to find out yourself. But that's the general summary of the book. So what do I take out of it? Well, I got to learn some new stuff that I didn't know before. For example, that everyone in the Lumineth are forced to have the military background, and also the fact that Teclis has actually just put his entire way of thinking into the society itself. The fact that they're rash and they think that they're always doing the right thing, but they never think about what happens after. And now that Broken Realms Bellicor has come out, and I'm more interested in as to what exactly did our Alario meant about the resurgence of life. And I tend to agree with Igethin that they do need to think about what happens afterwards and not just be rash. So we'll get to see the consequences that happen in this book and in Broken Realms Teclis, because they're connected in a way as to the rash way of going into Shaish and just attacking it and just taking the battle and feeling that they're responsible into keeping the peace in the realms. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on this book. Hopefully you liked my review. If you did, give it a thumbs up, and hopefully you get to subscribe. And I'll be reviewing the Broken Realms series soon, so wait for that. And so yeah, just remember that not everything is what it seems in the realm of Ulgu.